Like, what was the hardest part of these last 4 years, 3 years, I guess, being out of the playoffs? And even though you have some of the same guys, how is the team fundamentally different since 14?
Yeah. Well, we have 4 straight NLCSs, a couple World Series mixed in there from 11 to 14, and had a great chance to go to the World Series in 12, kind of let that slip. 13 went to the World Series. 14, Giants beat us. You know, they outplayed us in 14. But in 15, we had a 100-win team, and I think some guys just got fatigued, and we were pitching Lackey on short rest there at the end because some of our other pitchers were banged up, and I was just coming back from Achilles, and I was trying to do all I could. I think the Cubs just had a very good team that were ready to sort of take that next step. And then the last few years, we did not do a good enough job of controlling our own destiny. We came down to the last week every one of those last 3 years needing someone else to lose. And that was the difference in this year and those last 3 years was that, one year we had the Giants playing the Dodgers, and we just needed the Dodgers to win one game to force a playoff. And Kershaw and Hill and all those guys, just great pitchers, they got swept by the Dodgers, and we were like, come on, give us some help. But put yourself in a bad spot. It was poor planning on our part. This year we got ourselves in a good spot, and we're able to do it. But I think this year when you look at our team, we have a complete team that is doing a lot of different things well that we haven't been doing the last few years. This year we played much better defense. This year we ran the bases much better. This year our starting pitching was a little better. This year our bullpen was certainly much better. We have more thump in the middle of our lineup than we've had in years with Goldie and Ozuna in the middle there. So, yeah, those are the differences.
In the second row, Jennifer.
Adam, the last time these two teams met in the playoffs in 2012, the big storyline was that Stephen Strasburgs wasn't going to be able to pitch. If you can be unbiased, possibly, I mean, how much of an impact do you think that had on how that series went?
Well, I think anytime you add an arm as great as Stephen Strasburgs to a rotation, it's going to help. But, looking back, recollecting, I don't feel like those starters pitched bad games. Am I missing something there? I think those guys pitched well. They had us down that last game. Gio pitched 5 innings and came out with a big lead because the Cardinals starting pitcher laid an egg, and we fought back against their bullpen. But yeah, I mean, you could always point to something and say he would have thrown 9 shutout, but you just never know that. I mean, Verlander gave up runs the other day too, and I thought he was just about immortal. So probably could have helped for sure. He's an incredible pitcher, but we'll never know, will we? He's pitched pretty darn good in the playoffs since.
We'll take a last question or two over to your left.
Adam, with what you've gone through from a rehab standpoint the last few years, but also the team missing the postseason, do you personally reflect on competition or success differently now? Would you 10 or 15 years ago on maybe your drive home from the ballpark be reflecting differently on a day that you pitched?
I mean, I try to think the same, but the hardest part about the last 3 years was knowing that the Cardinals paid me, I won't say 3 years, 16, I had a chance to have a decent season, and I kind of blew it at the end. But the last 2 years, especially 17 and 18, the Cardinals paid me a lot of money to go out and perform a job and get them into the postseason, and I didn't do it. 17, I won 12 games, but I had a 5 ERA. It was hurt, the whole time. I was trying to make something out of it, and missing by 1 game. I'm just thinking, man, if I win my, 14 to 20 games like I do when I'm healthy, then that's the difference right there. So that hurts me a little bit, but there's nothing I could have done about it. I mean, I tried every single possible thing to get back, and my arm was just not recovering well. So it recovered this year, and I'm thankful for it. I'm looking more just at this year rather than looking back and sulking about it. I'm more looking at this year and the opportunity it brings.
And we'll finish up with the commission before the skipper's arrival.
You referenced that 2012 game that somebody started.
Right.
How did you
Terrible
feel after
job.
How'd you feel after the 3rd inning of that game, and how'd you feel after the 9th inning of that game?
Well, the 3rd inning, I mean, when you go out and pitch a game, I pitched a pretty good game 1, if I remember, and then game 5, you know, you feel like the whole city's looking at you. You know, millions of people watching across TV, fans in Hawaii and Alaska and Europe and all kinds of places are watching the game, you know, rooting for the Cardinals. And when you go out and you blow it completely in a winner-take-all game, you know, it makes you feel pretty low. I mean, that's where I was at after 3, of just thinking about how many people I'd let down. And I came back into the dugout shortly after that, and the vibe in the dugout was incredible. It was I can just remember Skip Schumacher and Chris Carpenter walking up and down the dugout, repeating over and over again, wow, this is going to be an epic comeback. I mean, I can remember that clear as day, you know, and everyone sort of like bought into it weirdly. You know, we're down 6-0 against a very good team, and we started chipping away, 1 or 2 here, 1 or 2 there, and then all of a sudden you're down 2. And even though we were down 2 against a tough closer in Storm, it seemed like just we're going to win that game, and everybody sort of believed that, you know, bought into it completely. It was you can't fake those things. That's a feeling that everyone sort of buys into naturally, that, you know, you can, oh yeah, here we go, you know, we're gonna come back, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be epic, whatever, and then it doesn't happen because you never believed it. But seemingly guys completely 100% bought